MovieWeb.com.
So I want to begin by asking you, with the film, you really, as opposed to other biopics, really look at and examine the life of Allen Ginsberg in an interesting and different way. The narrative is very sort of all over the place. Can you talk about that choice and how to sort of explore his life in this fashion?
Well, first of all, we call it a poem pick rather than a biopic. So that kind of tells you our orientation with the subject. The poem was really the central character. And in order to understand the poem as the central character, you have to understand the artist behind it. So that's what the film is about. It's about this artist and this work of art and how it came to be.
And I thought it was really great the way the animation sort of feeds through the film and feeds through his ideas. Could you talk about the choice to do that and where that kind of came from?
Well, we wanted to try to imagine, we wanted the poem to live as imagination in a cinematic way. And we discovered the work of Eric Drucker, who's an artist and a graphic novelist and a New Yorker cover artist, and he had actually collaborated on a book of poems with Allen Ginsberg, so including parts of Howl. So we met with Eric, and we decided to create a possible imaginary ride through the mind of a poet, and just let ourselves trip out.
What was it about Howl specifically and the life of Allen Ginsberg generally that you found was really great fodder for a film of this nature?
Well, I mean, you have to situate, first of all, you have to situate Howl in the time at which it emerged. It was written in 1955 and first introduced to the world in 56. And the 50s was a time of great conformity. Everybody was expected to dress the same and think the same and speak the same. And Allen and his fellow beat writers, they opened the window and said, we're all going to fly out. So, the world was never the same from that point on. So this is really a cultural marking point when the world as we know it now and live it now really was formed and started.
Actor James Franco really sort of transforms himself into the role and into two different Allen Ginsbergs, the young version and then sort of the older version that we kind of know better. Could you talk a little bit about his approach to the role and his dedication to this material?
James got involved in the project very early. We showed him a script, and he responded immediately and said, I'll do it until I'm too old to play the part. And we had no financing at that point, so we had many opportunities to work with James over the course of a year, rehearsing and going through the script and really talking about what was going on for Allen in his life that led him to the point where he could create this poem. And in the poem itself, what each line of the poem meant to him personally. So he did a lot of that, kind of internal work on his own in between these meetings with us over the course of a year. And then the last thing he did was look at video and film and listen to audio of Allen talking and really sort of take on the physical and vocal characteristics of Allen. And by the time he got to the set, he was Allen. I mean, friends of Allen's came to the set and they were just sitting in the back, with their mouths hanging open. It was Allen.
In that period that you spoke of, that you worked with him, I mean, did you see the transformation sort of slowly happen, or was there a moment where he kind of came in and you were like, wow, you know what I mean?
Well, it was more the latter, because in our sessions working with him, we'd be focused on very particular things. Sometimes it was just screen tests, working on looks, the glasses, black and white versus color, wardrobe. And other times it was just script sessions going through dialogue lines, and James would ask us a question that would make us realize that something wasn't quite right. So, it was that kind of director-actor relationship where the questions take you into another direction in both ways. And the last, later in the process, in one of the rehearsals, we just had a video camera and a video crew, and we had him perform the poem. And we hadn't done that in any of our sessions yet, and that was the first time we heard him do a spoken performance of the poem, and that was the first time we saw the full Ginsberg-esque characterization all coming together and alive, and that was very exciting.
I've heard James, in promoting this film, talk about the challenge of the role, really not only playing him young and then playing him older, but the fact that part of it he's a character acting, and then part of it he's talking directly to the camera. Could you talk about those scenes and that challenge?
Well, first of all, what he's doing there, it looks so simple, but it's incredibly difficult what he's doing, because he's essentially performing long monologues. That's not how we want it perceived by the audience. That's not how it's intended to play as a film scene. But in terms of the craft of what he's doing, he's performing these long monologues, and that's an incredible amount of text that he had to remember and perform. And he does it as if it's, it's just coming to him as he's speaking it, and it has to come through with that kind of spontaneity. And at the same time, it's a memory. Often he's taking you back into a memory, so he has to take himself back into his own memory, perform it as if it's alive, and he just does it beautifully.
Another great actor in the film that you cast is John Hamm, and of course everyone knows him from Mad Men, and sort of seems like he fits into the place and time of this film. You could almost see his character Don Draper, being this role. Was that sort of unintentional, intentional? Was there a certain point where you realized that was happening?
It might have been unconscious. Definitely wasn't conscious. We've certainly admired John's work on Mad Men. But we wanted somebody who could bring authority and charisma to this part, which is the defense lawyer, the lawyer who argues in defense of freedom of speech and for an artist's right to speak freely. That's a whole other element of the film, this obscenity trial, which is what happened when the poem was published and released into the world. So John seemed like a good choice.
The character that he plays is based on Jake Ehrlich, that was the defense attorney, who was a very kind of flamboyant attorney in his day, and was the model for Perry Mason, the TV show Perry Mason. So all that went into our thinking about John as the right person for that part.
We're free!
What is the Beat Generation?
There's no Beat Generation. Just a bunch of guys trying to get published.